Allegedly, players are reporting to reporters that they don't think that the coaches are prepared enough, that they work hard enough, that they do anything really. They're saying that they're lazy, basically. Then Mike McCarthy, Big Mike from Pittsburgh. Then he went and coached, I think, was San Fran, then Green Bay, was fired, hung out, coached in his basement for a couple years. Now he's the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. He came out and basically said, like, we gotta act like men. Okay? If you got something to say, you don't say it to Jane Slater at the NFL. You say it right to me, okay? And he said, I think maybe we were overcoaching, he said. Mm-hmm. So the reports of the players saying these guys don't teach anything, they don't do anything, blah, blah, blah. Mike McCarthy pivoted and went the complete opposite direction. He's like, actually, I think we're probably overcoaching at this point. We work too hard. We show up too early for things. We care too much. You know, the classic of everything that you would say is your downfall, which is actually a compliment to yourself. That is the route that Mike McCarthy is going. And to be 100% clear here, I've never played for a team with Mike McCarthy coaching. I have no idea what the day-to-day is in there. But if you're the players for the Dallas Cowboys and you start leaking that you think that the coaches aren't working hard enough, does that also maybe put a little bit of a doubt in the rest of the world about what type of fucking locker room you guys are running down there? What's the culture in the Dallas Cowboys locker room? Yeah, coaches have a job, right? Coaches' jobs are put schemes together, strategies together, what practice is and the meetings and blah, blah, blah. You get it. But the players have a job of themselves of governing what they have going on in their own building. The players have a responsibility to keep the culture going in your building that is a good culture. The locker room is a lot more important than a lot of people fathom. And I guess the Dallas Cowboys locker room could say, yeah, that's why we want to get the word out that what's going on with these coaches isn't good because we have a strong locker room. But I think a lot of other people who would play in the NFL would repeat what Aaron Rodgers said yesterday, which is basically the anonymous sources leaking out about what's going on behind closed doors in week 6, by the way, of an NFL season of a new regime, new coach, is chicken shit. And that's real. I think that's how a lot of players would be like, hey, listen, we understand that the game is that you have to leak information. You don't have to, but there are guys that leak information to people, and that's how the media operate, basically. So I don't have any problems with that. But whenever you start questioning an entire operation like Mike McCarthy has, 6 weeks into a new organization where you just lost your guy at quarterback, I think that's very, very interesting. I'll be intrigued to see how this all plays out. And Ed Werder of ESPN talked to Mike Greenberg this morning on Get Up, and he said it's very interesting that the players that couldn't win with the previous regime, okay, are now bitching about the current regime for not winning. It's like, well, maybe whenever you start saying things about stuff, okay, those things can all potentially come right back on you. And I think that's what's happening to the players. This is obviously not a good sign, especially if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, because you know that the Dallas Cowboys are always going to get talked about. They live in a fishbowl. Everything is going to get magnified. This is an interesting situation that we'll have to see how it plays out. But if you think about Mike McCarthy, if he continues to struggle and fail here, you have to ask yourself, is Aaron Rodgers potentially the fucking greatest quarterback of all time? That's what people are saying. That's what people are wondering. We'll continue to watch the Mike McCarthy Dallas Cowboys player situation down there, mostly because we're forced to do so on a daily sports show. You have to talk about the Cowboys because that's just the rules, I've been told. Dallas Cowboys, on the flip side, the players are allegedly leaking information as opposed to the organization which is leaking information in Miami. We got a leak problem in the NFL currently, and one of them is the Dallas Cowboys, the team that you selected to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl a couple months back. Because you've played for a team with Big Mike, Coach McCarthy coaching in Green Bay, and because you've been in an NFL locker room for as long as you were in an NFL locker room. And we talked to Aaron Rodgers yesterday, and he said any anonymous sources in this type of, it's chicken shit basically, especially 6 weeks into a new regime. Ed Werder this morning on ESPN goes, these same players that couldn't win in the previous regime are now saying that they can't win in this regime. It's almost like potentially maybe a locker room problem that we have going on down in Dallas, not just a coaching problem that everybody can see, but also potentially a locker room problem. How do you feel about this whole situation? And does this not scare the living hell out of you that the Cowboys are going to have to do a rebuild in there from ground up, it feels like?
Well, first off, before I dive into that, you have to give, if there's one thing Mike McCarthy is the best at in the NFL right now, it's his mask security. Like, have you ever seen his mask even below his nose?
No, and a lot of people are saying it's because he doesn't talk to anybody.
He's talking the whole time. What do you mean?
Well, everybody says his headphones up, his mask looks amazing, he's got his little call sheet, and then he stands off on the side. Everybody's saying he doesn't talk to anybody. If you listen to the reports, they're saying that they don't teach anybody anything and they're not even prepared. But then Mike McCarthy came out and said, maybe our problem is we're working too hard. We're teaching too much. You know what I mean?
Too prepared.
So too prepared. We care too much about this team. We try too hard to win these games, and we're over-prepared for these. He went on an entire pitch the other way, but what he did say that I agreed with, because I've never played for Mike McCarthy, he said, we got to handle this like men, okay? That we go and we do this personally. We don't leak to the media or whatever. And I was like, I can respect that. I think that's how everybody probably feels.
And especially Big Mike being the Pittsburgh tough guy he is, like that's his life. He lives by like a code, like it's a great code. But yeah, like no, you got a problem? Come here. You come right to my. Let's talk about it. You definitely don't go to the media. Definitely don't go snitching behind my back to somebody. So yeah, I could see any coach getting upset. The quote there that worries me is the one at the very end. That said, another player says, they aren't very good at their jobs.
That's a pretty strong quote. That is a pretty strong quote.
And when you say they, like, are they talking the whole staff? Like a big chunk of the staff? Like, who are we talking about?
They don't have any sense of adjusting on the fly. They just aren't good at their jobs. Cowboys.
But this is probably what, a couple players, maybe two, maybe three. I know Jane Slater. She's a legit journalist. She's not. I'm sure she actually talked to him. I wonder, are they guys that are mad because they got taken out of the lineup? They're not getting the time they feel like? It all depends on who you're talking to.
Well, Jane Slater here, maybe the biggest word in this entire tweet that says Cowboys players initially bought into keeping things internal. Now as they sit 2-4, the discontent is leaking out. On the coaching staff, totally unprepared. They don't teach. They don't have any sense of adjusting on the fly. That's the biggest word there, is another, right? That was her informing everybody that this isn't just one person that's telling me this. This is numerous. They just aren't good at their jobs. And I would assume those conversations maybe went a little bit longer than just these quotes. I don't know what was maybe held by Jane instead of being released, but that's problematic. That is not good. Tony Dungy said one of his first meetings, he'll say, we don't have any players in here named anonymous, okay? Which is a great way to, if you want to say something, put your name on it, because now Mike McCarthy has to wonder who the hell said all those things. Who said that they're not adjusting on the fly? Okay, so there has to be somebody probably pretty prominent on our defense or on our offense that would know if they were adjusting on the fly or not. Then you just have that guessing game. It's like, oh, who's the rat in here? Who is? And he's just new into the place. Wild scene in Dallas, dude. Wild scene.
And if you're the head coach, if you're Mike McCarthy, how could you not just walk around and eyeball every single person? I know they got a mask on, so it's a little more difficult, but you're like, you just eyeballing everybody and trying to get some kind of feel like it might be you? Okay.
Hey, quick question. Last halftime, what would you have done differently? I was right. That's what I thought. Fucking keep it moving. You. Halftime, what would you have done? What was done? Oh, it was you. All right, get this guy the fuck out of here. Get out. Go out in. What's up, Nick?
Let's not forget, too, that when the McCarthy Project, the documentary, a little short film there, put together by, that was Pelissaro, right, who put that together, which maybe turned out to be somewhat of a propaganda film about how much work Mike was doing in the offseason. Then when Mike gets hired in the press conference sitting next to Jerry Jones, said, well, I didn't really watch that much film.
No, well, he said, I told Jerry that I watched every play of the 2019 season or something like that. I told him, and since I got the job or whatever, because I wanted a job or whatever. Yeah, I think they also just potentially went on a bender that night before at Jerry's house. Yeah. That's what it looked like, that entire thing. But, the Mike McCarthy experience or experiment or whatever it was called, this is a wild scene. We're 6 weeks into it, and it's all hell breaking loose down in Dallas. Maybe it's not the coach. Maybe it's just the entire culture down there is just one of
and if you're a coach,
consummate suck.